Hello.
Hi.
We're both early.
Prompt, well brought up young people.
That's right. So I was just checking if we needed to have the recording on. We auto record in case I turn it off. So yes, the recording is on now, and just wanted to make that clear. So it's a real pleasure to meet you. I've been reading your books, and it's a real pleasure to meet you. And
Well, I wish I was in Dublin, I can tell you, one of my favorite places.
oh, thank you very much. We used to have such a wonderful live in a hotel with an awards dinner and music, and oh, it was wonderful. But
Music. I have so many wonderful memories of music and dancing in pubs all over Ireland.
oh, that's
One day we'll get back to being able to live that way again, I hope.
yes. Well, next year we're going to have a small live session. I don't expect everyone will be traveling next year, but we are hoping that 2 years from now, 23 or 24, will be much bigger, back to normal. So hopefully you'll be at some point this decade, you'll be able to join us in any case.
I have a new novel coming out next year, so
Okay.
From Your Mouth to God's Ear.
From Your Mouth to God's Ear. That's the title.
No, that's just what I'm saying about being able to travel again.
I won't ask you about the new novel because I know you sometimes writers don't want to talk too much about something coming out next year. Do you want to tell us even a little bit about?
Yes, I can tell. Yes.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit would be nice. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just make sure. Yes, the recording is working because I have an option to stop it, so that's okay. So, Greg, tell us a little bit about what's coming next year. We're always interested in what people are working on.
Yes, this is a novel that took me a very long time and kept growing in scope as I went. It is inspired by the true story of an actual racehorse who was extremely popular in the United States in the 1850s, running into the Civil War. And it's an intriguing story about the incredible power and endurance of this horse, plus the fate of the horse during the Civil War, which is also quite interesting. And all of that is grounded in the historical record. But then there was an itinerant painter who did many portraits of the horse during its illustrious career. And so the painter comes into the story, and a missing painting of the horse with the black groom who was, I am inferring, quite responsible for the care and success of the horse. So that missing painting takes us on a journey to New York in the 1950s, around the time of the abstract expressionist movement, because a gallerist became obsessed with a painting of the horse at the time, which is also grounded in fact. And then there's a more fanciful contemporary section, because the skeleton of this horse ended up in the Smithsonian, and as an item of curiosity and scientific study.
Very good. That sounds truly fascinating. I discovered in some recent research that horse racing goes back a long way. In fact, they used to do it at various events in Celtic times and Anglo-Saxon times, where they'd have a summer festival, and included was horse racing and dancing and all the rest. So that really, so the whole thing about horse racing, it has a lot of roots. I didn't realize that they were actually doing horse racing in the Civil War, before the Civil War.
Oh yeah, no, it was huge. It was a much more popular pastime than anything we can imagine now. Everybody was engrossed in these match races, generally speaking, and they were 4-mile heat races, and the horses had to have the endurance to do 4 miles 3 times in one day.
Wow.
So these were magnificent animals indeed.
Right, that sounds wonderful. And you're looking at what, late next year for that coming out?
No, mid next year. It'll be out in the middle of June. So
Very good. Are we allowed to know the title?
it's called Horse.
Horse. Very good. Very good. That's
Easy
wonderful.
to remember.
Very good. So I want to get on to some of the questions that we were thinking about for this session. So question one, which of the books did you enjoy writing most or feel most proud of now, and why?
Yeah, the pride thing. Yeah, no, I don't actually have a pride in the books. The one I enjoyed working on the most, I think, was probably People of the Book, because it took me into so many different continents and periods of history, and the research for it was just an enormous amount of pleasure, including a trip to Venice. You don't often get to travel to Venice for work and research, and I found myself needing to research the angel hair pasta with shaved truffle very extensively indeed. So I'd say that one was the most enjoyable. I think the one that I guess if it's a kind of pride, but the one that most successfully achieves what I set out to do is probably Caleb's Crossing, because I feel like I had a real grasp of both the character's voice and the sense of place in that one. But I do have a soft spot for my first novel, Year of Wonders, as well, because that was the book that allowed me to believe I could actually do this thing.
Very good. I know that feeling. So People of the Book, I've read People of the Book, and it is wonderful. I'm not just saying that. And I can understand what you're talking about, all the different eras, and really interesting trying to understand the journey that such a book would have gone through, and the twists and turns, and the nature of human suffering and what we do to each other, and for the craziest reasons, what people, I'm sure in some corner of the world are still doing. But it's really fascinating, People of the Book. If anyone hasn't read it, it's really, really both entertaining and educational, and keep you gripped to the last page. So that's really interesting about those books. And do you find there's threads that keep going through your books? How do you feel about those ideas?
I think even though the books are quite different in setting and time period, they're all essentially the same story, which is, who are you in a time of catastrophe? How does the human spirit respond? And this is something that I carry with me from my first career as a journalist and foreign correspondent, when I was covering conflicts in the Middle East primarily, but also Africa and the Balkans. And it was an extraordinary decade in which I was encountering people at the worst time of their life. And I think none of us knows how we're going to respond, whether this time of crisis will bring out our best self or our worst self. And the question of who we become and how does a crisis impact the human spirit is the thread, I think, that runs through pretty much all of my work.
That's fascinating, and I think leads on very well to what advice would you give to writers?
Read a lot of poetry.
Ah.
I think the poets are, just to use a horse analogy, the poets are the 3-day eventers of writing. They can do absolutely anything with language, whereas we prose people are like those of us who go for a walk on a plump pony,
That's very interesting. Yeah.
So I always start my day, my writing day. I have the Norton Anthology of Poetry by my desk, and I just let it fall open randomly, and I read whatever poem presents itself, and just enjoying the gymnastic skill of poets, I think, is like a wonderful way to prime the pump.
Yes, I'd agree with you. Some poems are hugely powerful for the small number of words that they put into them. So yes, I've found poetry books powerful and inspiring as well. So
I also think it's very important, and it's a fading practice. But when I was coming up, I went to a Catholic girls' school, and they were very, very big on memorization. And I actually took elocution lessons, which is such an old-fashioned idea, but we had to memorize great swaths of poetry. And I think it's a fantastic thing for the plasticity of your mind to get those bright shards of unconventional language just in your head. And I think it shapes the way you think about language.
yes, that's fascinating, really fascinating. Any final thought on what else a writer should do?
Just glue your bum to the chair. It's not the sufficient condition, but it is the necessary condition for getting anything done. You have to put the time in, and it won't go. You can't. The best piece of advice I ever got was not from a writer, but a sculptor, a friend of mine, a great artist called Sarah Z. And somebody asked her about her process, and she laughed and she said, "My process is mess, 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 art." And I found that absolutely revelatory and super encouraging, because the truth is you can't make art every day. Some days you'll sit down and it just won't be any good at all. But you can make a mess every day. And if you make that mess, you've got something to work with. You've got the clay and you can shape it. But if you don't do anything, then you've got nothing.
Wow, that's really, really interesting. Thank you. And really inspiring and absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. And I love that quote about mess, mess, mess art. That's really, really strong. I'll have to write that down somewhere quickly. So the next question is, character development plays a big part in your novels. I was particularly thinking about Anna in Year of Wonders and Mrs. Montpellier as well. And so my question was, how do you plan all that the development of the character? It's really interesting to see how those characters develop in that book, but also other books. I won't mention other characters, but how do you plan all that?
So here's my dirty little secret. I don't actually plan.
Okay.
I'm a very instinctive writer. I can't start until I can hear the voice of the narrator in my head. So until I know how she sounds, I can't possibly know who she is or how she'll act. So before I start writing, I have to figure out who the storyteller is. And then I try and find as much written material as I can by somebody like that from that time period. And this can be very difficult with women because we don't have a lot of women's journals before the mid, I'd say, well, before 1750, women just were not, either they weren't taught to write or they didn't have the leisure to write. So we don't have journals, we have very few letters, but you scrounge around, and I found that one place you can hear women speaking in their own voices is in court, because women were always being hauled into court. Here in Massachusetts, where I live now, the church courts were always hauling in women accused of terrible crimes like being a scold, which meant that you'd been overheard criticizing a man in public. And I'm certainly glad that one's not still on the books.
Prisons would be full.
And it's fascinating because they take down verbatim testimony. So you get the sound of the woman's voice there.
Wow.
Anyway, how she sounds tells me who she is, and who she is tells me how she'll act. And that sets the plot in motion. within the framework of the actual historical story that has intrigued me for whatever reason, usually because it's so unlikely. So if I had made up, I mean, Mark Twain said a wonderful thing. He said, fiction must be plausible, truth needn't be. And I think that's very true. So I look in the historical record for implausible truths. The fact
Yes.
that a Native American raised in his own language and culture, mastered Latin and Greek, and went to Harvard College in the 1660s and graduated with the sons of the Puritan colonial elite. If I made that up, that wouldn't be very interesting. What makes it interesting is the fact that it happened.
Yes. No, that's very true. We do, and it's sometimes something that we can stumble over in a book when we see something implausible.
Yes,
Which could perhaps even.
You never want to drag your reader out of the world that you're creating, which is why I think I owe it to my reader to do my research. And then once you've done it, you can set it aside, but you have to know. You have to know those things in your own fiber before you can really write convincingly. And if you make a mistake, it's a shocker. And I've made them. I have my character in Year of Wonders use the word mauve. She's reflecting on the mauve tide of the heather. Well, mauve didn't exist in 1665. The color was invented in France sometime later, and the word wasn't in common usage for much longer still.
Well, I think that illustrates the depth of your research. You would know that mauve, and it's interesting how language, of course, develops, and how we can use words inappropriate. I think that's probably one of the very lesser of the stumbling blocks that you can put in mauve in. So thank you for that. But I do think that character development is perhaps an intrinsic part of the stories that you've been weaving, and that is perhaps a key part of the story, is how somebody like Anna changes during Year of Wonders and what she becomes, which I thought was fascinating. And the end is dynamite. I'm not going to give anything away, but I want to tell you, it's really dynamite. The ending of Year of Wonders.
I've actually taken a lot of stick for that ending, because some readers did find it implausible, but without giving it away, I will say that it is grounded in fact and based on the true story of two Irish women, actually, who were midwives, who set out for a life in the New World and ended up, their ship was waylaid by Barbary pirates, and they were going to be sold into chattel slavery, but because of their skills as healers, they became respected and valued members of the community in North Africa where they wound up. So I left out the pirates, but I decided that I could possibly borrow some other elements of their story.
Well, the ending is spectacular for anyone who hasn't read Year of Wonders. The ending is just like a ray of light, a sunrise. So it's really, really interesting. And what you've done with that ending is inspirational. So the next question is, do you think our current pandemic will change the novel in any way, or will we quickly try to forget it all, which seems to have happened 100 years ago? The culture tried to forget the Spanish flu.
Yeah, that's very interesting how suppressed that was. But I have to think that it was because of the even greater disruptions of World War I and the even greater losses. So this was on a continuum of history being one damn thing after another. And I don't know that this is going to be over. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think we have to reflect on the fact that if we continue to abuse nature in the way we have done, this won't be the last virus that jumps. And we may never go back to the status quo ante. So I think it behooves us to not be too quick to put this in the rearview mirror and think about what will be in the after times, because it's not clear to me when the after times will be.
Yes. Um, it creates a real challenge for writers writing about the contemporary period.
I know this because with the novel I just finished, the contemporary thread of the novel, I had to think where, I had to make it not quite contemporary because I couldn't set my characters in motion the way I wanted if they're all in lockdown.
Yeah. It's a real challenge, and I see some TVs and movies starting to grapple with that, but I expect we'll see more about that from writers in the next few years. Perhaps we're slow to digest and to see, as you say, the impact has not been fully felt yet, particularly on our culture, and the waves of this impact are still being felt by many people and still yet to be felt, and by many as well. So the final question is about challenges for you as a writer. I think we all, well, I try to improve. I know it's a Sisyphean task, but I try to improve. And what challenges do you see for you as a writer?
I've been doing this now for 25 years. That was when that's my sprite flitting through the background. That was when I switched from journalism to fiction. And I think that the challenge for me is to try and keep the voices fresh and to keep the enthusiasm for the past and the antenna up to find that story that is the intriguing, implausible truth that inspires me to work.
Well, I wish you all the best with that. That's a wonderful thing to think about, and for inspiration. I wish you all the best with that, as it's, we look forward to reading more of your novels and to reading your new book when it comes out and seeing how all that turns out. And we wish you to find many threads of inspiration over the next period as you look for further books beyond the current one. And I must say, I know there are a lot of people who very much appreciate your session with us. And thank you very much. There'll be a lot of people who are very interested in this, and we very much appreciate that you've been able to do this with us. So thank you very much, Geraldine. I really appreciate this.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and I hope I can be there in person someday.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.